All right, good morning. I'm John Marvin with Yakama Nation Fisheries, project manager for the Ahtanum Village project. And this was funded through the SIRP board, with project 1946. And this is proposed as under the targeted investments program. Cool. All right. So Ahtanum Village site, Ahtanum Road, 34th Lane. It's not called Ahtanum Village because there was a village there. That was the subdivision that was supposed to get built there. Yakama Nation acquired in 2017. It's 54 acres, 1 acres, acre feet of surface water rights. Now it's in the city of New Gap. These are the Creek or Ahtanum Road. So there was a subdivision proposed here, a development agreement. It's now currently zoned industrial because of the stuff, but it won't be industrial. So here's kind of an aerial view of the property. So it was previously used for agriculture, mostly grazing on this side, hay on this side. The grazing really did a wahoo on it there. So part of the acquisition funded by EPA, they own a conservation easement on it. And it's currently in the open space tax program. Now, the access is from Fetzer Road here, and there's a easement down against the property. So limiting factors in Ahtanum Creek, degraded channel structure complexity, degraded habitat, degraded riparian and floodplain habitat, and diminished and or no large wood. So in the steelhead recovery plan for the Matches existing population, floodplain construction development. So Matches Action Plan 27, restoring Ahtanum Creek floodplain and side channels. It's a tag focus, project number 10, restoring projects to reduce incision and increase complexity in Maidstone and Ahtanum Creek. The acquisition of the property addressed Action 20 and 29 of protecting riparian areas to lessen development and reducing livestock impacts. So the proposed actions are restoring natural geomorphic and processes and historic wood loading, basically adding roughness and more channel length to the stream, increasing the frequency and quality of pool habitat, riparian cover, woody material, channel length, and reducing the hydraulic energy. I'll show you some pictures that'll address this. And floodplain function, these are some of the metrics that are in the basis of design report. If anyone's interested. So increasing floodplains and channel length, different depths and width ratios based on the shear flood and the hydraulic model. So to address this, so the designs are proposing to add 18 in-channel wood structures, about 20 logs per structure, racking / ballast, 125 individual unanchored root balls, and spawning sediments. So part of the project is digging basically 2 side channels, creating some inset floodplains. There'll be some excess material that will be reused in the construction of the project, using some in the structures themselves. And if there is more excess, that will be placed on the channel margins for spawning gravel supplementation. So, with the structures and the individual logs, it could be up to 140 pools created of various sizes. So again, the excavation, so we're going to gain almost 1,000 feet of side channel and 6 acres of new floodplain inundation. There's 2 sections of channel remeandering that'll add 400 feet of channel length, and then riparian revegetation of 15 acres. So just kind of run through some of the design components. So this is an existing condition. And then the proposed condition. So here's one of the side channel creations right here. So these are taking advantage of historic channels that are no longer activated at current flows. 1, 2, you can see the structures in here, and then adding roughness into the side channels. Here's one of the benches and some remeander. Here's the second bench and remeander. Stop me if I'm going too fast or if you have any questions on the design components. Just kind of the erosion control plan and access to the site. Most of the obviously our access is here on this side. The property to the south is, Yakama Nation, trust land. So kind of both Yakama Nation, properties. So just some, zooming in on some of the side channel creations. And then, just note, so these aren't proposed to be perennial side channels. To address low flow concerns, the side channels are basically designed to activate at about 23 CFS or 50% exceedance. So about 6 to 8 months out of the year. I'm going through the design sheets, the wood structures and the loose wood, and the gravel supplementation. It's one of the re-meanders, so filling in the existing channel, and having to flow back into the re-meander channel with the roughness logs and loose logs. So the stream profiles showing the wood structures and the proportional raise in the water surface elevation. So some existings at the 2-year flow. It's existing, the stream doesn't get out of the channel very much, in Lower Ahtanum Creek. So the proposed condition at the depths of the 2-year flow, so spreading water out, getting water to these side channels, re-meandering and activating these new floodplain surfaces. And so here's velocity. Again, the water doesn't really get out of the channel much. It's pretty high velocity stuff. So this is going to slow that water down, spread it out on the floodplain and through the side channels. This is an example of a similar project we did on Tam Creek with similar wood structures that added a lot of complexity. It's storing and spawning gravels and spreading the water out. Our Todd Newsom, our co-biologist, was out there just this last fall, and there's a ton of coho. There are some coho spawning out there on these behind these structures that are storing sediment. And then some of the cross sections for the side channels. The plan is to avoid natural vegetation as much as possible, field fit these side channels, keeping the native, and also there's a ton of crack willow out here, so we're going to be taking those out where we can. And so some of the cross sections of the floodplain surfaces and the grading plans to create these surfaces. The channel re-meander. Cross sections of the channel re-meanders in the finished surfaces. The designs for the wood structures. So there is a caliche layer out there. We did some geotesting to look at the available sediments and where the caliche is. The Tanner project used piles. If we can get piles, we'll use them. Or if not, we'll be using boulders as ballast and or potentially both, depending on how the piles go. Some of the roughness log schematics, and then some of how the piles will go. Ideally, if they work. The Ahtanum Creek, there was a clay layer that we ran into that took some, creative engineering and breaking of equipment, but we were eventually successful in kind of changing the angle of driving the piles. The first few weeks were kind of slow, but we got the hang of it. It worked out pretty slick.
So the clay impeded pile driving?
Yes.
Oh, okay.
And then this is the planting plans. All the planting is on the north side of the stream. With the bank plantings, floodplain plantings, and terrace plantings. It's kind of the planting specs, species and volumes and types. Sorry, I just put in the laser open for anybody who's going out. And then here is the engineer's estimate for construction, 1.5. I do have some cost share. 40 from US Fish and Wildlife and probably a little more than 200,000 with NRCS RCPP, which could probably use most of this for the planting portion of it. NRCS RCPP, I'm way ahead of schedule, is more apt to riparian planting than habitat restoration, as we're finding out, trying to spend NRCS money, not easy. And then just some similar projects within the watershed, Sal is downstream. Similar inset floodplains and channel, or at least some roughness and riparian planting, and then North Yakima Conservation District upstream, both CERT board funded projects in 2010 and 2014. There we go. Short and sweet, hopefully specific enough, and we have lots of time for questions.
John, is this already permitted?
Almost across the finish line with HIP 4 through BPA. Basically just some minutia in the basis of design reports and the dewatering and erosion control plans, but the designs are pretty much done. And then we'll start the Army Corps, the 401, 404, 106, the report, I believe, got sent in last week. So 106 has been initiated. And then probably the HPA pilot program with this, although we haven't gone through that yet, but.
Oh, you are thinking you'll use the pilot?
Excuse me?
You thinking you'll use that HRSG pilot?
Yeah, I mean, ideally. So this design took a long time. So I calculated it when I started the acquisition. I've been working on this for like almost 12 years. The design still went through a number of iterations. We got the design money right as the FEMA floodway rescindment came out. One of the iterations had a flood overflow channel that wasn't a good idea, but we tried it. And then we contemplating going through the FEMA Lomar process. Talked with the city and the county a couple times, really couldn't get a commitment. Obviously, we didn't apply for it, but they were at least on board. And then just kind of those two similar projects, although they were pre the FEMA Zero Rise, we just decided to go with a similar design with mitigating for rise on site. So the designs, the model, so there will be no impact to upstream, which is Emma Lane, which is a pretty, a lot of us are familiar with Emma Lane and its chronic flooding issues, but will not cause any problems there. And will not cause any floodplain FEMA floodplain changes downstream. So everything will be contained on the site.
So you did get it in writing?
Yes. Yeah. So there is I believe it's in the package. There's a no rise memo from the engineers that all rise will keep contained in the site.
All right, we got a question here.
Sure, I've got a general question about the fisheries benefit of this project. I know we've got an isolated bull trout populations in some of the upper tributaries of this. I'm less familiar with some of the salmon and steelhead fisheries benefits.
Yeah, this is a steelhead project. There is documented steelhead spawning in this reach. Actually, there's been some on site. Tim Rezagy, the on reservation fish biologist, steelhead biologist, I actually just talked to him yesterday. They haven't been doing surveys since like 2010 or something. It's hard to survey. There's a lot of private land. It's a very confined channel. It's dangerous kind of during spawning season. Access is hard. Usually turbidity is hard too. So unfortunately, we don't have a lot of more recent data on steelhead use. But since I started this 12 years ago, damn it, I'm gonna finish it. Some one way or another. Just Ahtanum Creek, it's identified in the plan. The plan might be updated, but It is still, it's a steelhead stream. I know Todd has tried to put, or Todd Newsom, our coho biologist, without a lot of success. I don't know if the coho will be even built this far, so basically a steelhead project.
Also a lot of lamprey.
Yes,
Well, it's a tough spot to do a restoration project with all the land ownership around it. You guys have been fighting through that for a long time and looks like, as far as I understand, you're pretty close. So,
very close.
way to stick with it. It's been, I know it's been a real challenging one.
I forgot a question too. Where are you at on your permitting and did you say unanchored root balls? Can you explain?
There are engineered, roughness structures and then, some anchored and some unanchored, root balls in between them. Permitting, we're almost across the finish line with the BPA hit 4, say. And 106 has just been initiated. So we're pretty close to getting our, at least those permits, and then after. I need to start the 401, 404 permitting process here this. So even if, I think by this did get funded, I mean, we could implement as early as summer of 25.
And the 100-year floodplain or do you, so I mean, I'm pretty close to that boardroom. What do you call it? Pretty, there.
Yeah, the warehouses now.
Yeah, do you have a design on if you were to get 100-year?
Yeah.
Those, I mean, much CFS we talked about moving towards the north, right?
CFS off the top of my head, I don't know. This will not affect the Bortons. It won't, basically all the flooding impacts are contained within the property.
In our, I guess in our 1996, I guess what I'm saying is when the floods are, I mean, it really flooded there. And so I kind of want to get an image of how much that whole Borden area is going to be.
Yeah, so there are, I think I got a little spooked when I saw 15 minutes. I was like, 15 minutes, that's not very much time. They're in the basis of design report, there are existing floodplains and then how this project will impact those floodplains. But every flood on a tandem is different. Depending on what channel it jumps into, what canal it jumps into. At least the ones I've seen generally they do weird things. So it's hard to predict. So at least the FEMA maps for our tandem are somewhat new. I'm trying to remember exactly when they have been updated. But I mean, I'm trying to remember the neighbor's neighbor, right to the west. I remember him describing that the floods went around him, in 96, I believe, so. But at least the modeling shows that it won't affect those properties.
Borden, you use the word Borden, it's a place, area, farm, what is
I
that?
got a big mansion, they built a big mansion, fruits down on it.
Cold storage, yeah.
So,
Yeah, the acquisition, the acquisition took like 5 years, the property actually changed hands. This was like United Builders was gonna do the development there. Thornton's bought it, and then they built, there's like these ginormous, warehouses right along the Tandem Road. Can't remember, the guy said they're multiple 100,000 square feet.
Yeah, I couldn't picture what that.
Funny enough, they built those warehouses in the floodplain, but it's putting wood in a stream is, we have more hurdles putting wood in a stream than putting a warehouse in a floodplain.
Right. Maybe you could just, attach those 100-year, because I know you guys have done your due diligence. You've gone through all the modeling and, shown that it's compliant with the flood regs. Maybe that's something that, since there's a lot of interest, you could upload as an attachment so people can see that you.
Sure, it's in the basis of design report. I could pull those out separate, just so they're easier.
And this is a wacky area because you're getting flooding out of Bachelor and Hatton Creeks to the north as well as a Tandem Creek. And so you may see floodplain, but it may not have no connection to the project area through here.
I'm just saying
Yeah.
they've done the work. We should
Yeah.
We should recognize they've done the standard analysis required.
No, totally agreed. I'm just saying if you see floodplain, it doesn't mean the water's coming from the project area.
Right.
Yeah, Ahtanum Creek is very tricky creek. It's so urbanized on the north and it's got a lot of folks that live close. Very touchy. Majority of it still had habitat and spawning as in upper reaches, so. Yeah, and then do introduction of lamprey as well into Ahtanum Creek. So it's an interesting creek to work on.
Doesn't help that Ahtanum Creek is asked to make a 90-degree bend. just
Yeah.
Upstream from here where it hits 42nd and turns dead south for a few hundred yards, except in floods where it keeps going straight. Hence Emma Lane, it looks like it was designed to dock aircraft carriers and stuff. It has huge concrete walls in people's front yards and stuff like that. So it's worth the trip.
Yeah, the county's been trying for years to address that, but to no avail.
Yeah,
I think it's still on their
decades. I know from experience.
Yes, it's still on their to-do list, I hear, but,
Any more questions before we wrap this one up?
Again, this is our first one going for the large project pot. The great thing about that pot is you saw the project cost on this was bigger than the 50% chance of our whole surfboard pot, so it lets us put bigger projects through. And we'll rank it separately just against the other large projects and send it on to the state. This one, any advice people have, not just for what do we need to rank it, but any input for John on what'll help it compete statewide is most welcome, because they won't be done when we give them their ranking. They'll just be going into the state process, or actually, it'll be concurrent. State will be doing that in July while we're doing our final ranking, and they'll adjust based on our final ranking.
Well,
Between now and June, any advice on ways they can make this proposal really stand out for the state competition? It's a whole nother layer compared to old surfboard.
I mean, I'm fairly familiar with the project over the years. You know, something you don't tell as much of a story as part of this, but there may be a place for that in the state process. I don't really understand the state process is, you know, how it connects to the reservation lands and if there's any special importance to it. You know, just because of its location, as opposed to just the fish benefits, that there might be a way to, you know, identify some unique pieces of it there, unique benefits.
and yeah, I did look at the targeted investment criteria and I tried to incorporate that into the application. Do I have to, is there another presentation I have to give to this? Just curious. Or is it, because I know at least the surfboard tag has already seen this, they've seen the designs and they've concluded that they're done with their review.
There won't be another presentation. We will have review panel members out on the site visits, and luckily this is a good accessible site to get them out to. And they may look at the recording of this one, and they'll be looking at the application as it stands and as it's altered in June. They'll look at the same materials we're looking at. It's just that in July, early August, they'll do a separate ranking against all the other projects in the state, and then that'll be with some criteria that are based on our final ranking.
So we do have scheduled a break right now, until 10:45, which is about 10 minutes from now. And then we'll hear more from John about another project. Please help yourself to the snacks in the back. Bathrooms are out that door and just down the hall a little bit to the right.
Richard. If you can save this presentation, do you mind if we save your, well, you already had his PDFs, right?
No, there's somebody else.
Oh, there's
I
someone.
think it's on my computer.
No, I emailed the PDFs over this morning.
Right, so we got the PDF.
Appreciate the
already for
redundancy.
these two, but we should always check we have a copy. We'll need to get Zach's one for each bag.
Okay.
And what we can do now, let's close out of this one. I know what you're supposed to now. We'll want to open up the one for the tie-in that's on the same thumb drive. And just make sure we have it.
Oh, yeah.
There.
Hey, good, John. Major complaints.
I was skiing this winter.
Have not been on skis this whole season.
Actually, pretty by choice or?
It's a bunch of things, so it was actually pretty bad before Christmas break. I never skied on Christmas break, and kids and crowds and everything, and then after that.
Wow.
All the hot buttons stay away from.
Did you see the?
Be the first time since I believe.
Yes, that was what I was gonna.
Yeah, I wasn't gonna do it. My wife
Okay.
quit skiing completely.
I have stayed in this real quick and then for you.
Because, she's got some bone density issues and, her doctor said, you know,
Because I know
sure
that
away any activities that
kind of just
involve twisting and falling. And she said, well, that would be how I ski.
It would
And,
be more
so she
appropriate.
just said, you know, I don't need to risk, so,
Have the,
but yeah, we're trying to sell my current house up in Seal Heights, which is a tiny center.
two,
Just
like, I mean,
You should be able to pause and unpause.
Not your-
as photos.
No, my,
in the spot that.
parents built a house up on Reservoir Reef up in the, up in Spires. Seal Heights. They lived out their lives there and then I wound up with it, bought out my two brothers, we inherited it. Got ready to sell in like 2013 and then his mom needed.
Well,
a
and
place
they're
to live,
just-
so she moved in and lived out her days there. And so now we've gotta unload it. You know, it's a couple parcels and I gotta do a boundary line adjustment. And gotta get some easements, cause it's got an HEC water. That's a bunch